Hi everyone! This week's Feeding Communities edition of Talking Thursday / Talking Tuesday, I speak with CEO of Belle Vue Education, Mark Malley. Mark and Belle Vue have been extremely generous in supporting us with our Feeding Communities initiative. We're really excited to be opening Sherfield School and the Oratory Prep School kitchens where we will be producing meals to support the local communities. Mark and I speak about why he wanted to support the Feeding Communities initiative and also how the pandemic has changed the way that Belle Vue are working. Have a watch. Hi Mark, how are you?
I'm very well, thanks. How are you?
Yeah, not bad, thank you. And thank you so much for taking the time to talk to myself on our Feeding Communities edition of Talking Thursdays, which is kind of Talking Tuesdays. Would you mind introducing yourself to our viewers and telling us a bit about your connection to Thomas Franks as well?
Of course. So I'm Mark Malley and I'm the Chief Exec of Belle Vue Education. Belle Vue is a group of schools, 21 schools in total, and we have about 5,000 pupils and students, but we cover the full age range from 6 months right up to 19. I think we have around 1,200 people working in the organisation, most of whom are teachers and office staff and catering staff and that sort of stuff. So pretty sizable, and it's been quite a year.
Yeah, I could only imagine. So as many people know, yourself mainly and Belle Vue have been extremely, and I mean extremely, generous towards our Feeding Communities initiative. Why did you choose to support this project?
So I should start by saying, actually, our relationship with Thomas Franks is because, well, obviously we have to feed our children and feed our staff every day. And across the group, our model is predominantly, we tend to outsource the catering. So there are very few schools where we do it ourselves. We tend to outsource it. And Thomas Franks work at a number of our schools. It's quite a new relationship, actually. But Thomas Franks works with a number of schools, and so that's a relationship we have with them. In terms of the Feeding Communities thing, you know, Anna, there aren't many things I can point to say why this pandemic's a good thing. Or, I mean, actually, very few things at all. But what it has done is shine a light, I think, on some of the structural inequalities in our society, which have always been there. But somehow during this pandemic, a kind of light has been shone on them. And I think that's been important. I have a particular interest in homelessness. Mm-hmm. I think it's a stain in our society. I get deeply upset about that. But more has been done in this last year in homelessness than has been done in the previous 25 years. And when you think about food inequality, I think it's a similar story. I mean, we all know about the Marcus Rashford campaign, but it's so much more than that. And food inequality can lead to family instability, which then leads to unemployment and you know, major long-term issues. And I think those of us who can play a role and take part in helping others much less fortunate, I think we have a moral responsibility to stand up and be counted. And given so much of this food inequality affects children, the fact that we run a schools group with children who are very fortunate, I think we have a responsibility to help those who are much less so. And given that we can, we absolutely should. So that's why I wanted to be involved in this terrific campaign that you guys are leading.
Well, it's amazing to have your support and yourself on board. And I think I'm right in saying that we're going to be using Sherfield School and the Oratory Prep School's kitchens as well to produce the meals, sending out to local charities and communities who need it, which is just amazing.
Great.
Kind of a question not really related to food or Thomas Franks, but how has Belle Vue had to adapt with the pandemic? From a Thomas Franks point of view, we've moved completely virtually. Everything is done online, but I can only really imagine how difficult it must be, you know, coordinating all of these different schools, but especially with the younger children, because I actually saw something on Twitter and it was, you know, I think just a primary school teacher from somewhere, and they were trying to start their lessons, but their children were more interested in what pets they had at home and things like that. So I just wanted to see what it was like for you guys.
Similar thing, trying to get children focused while delivering online stuff. I mean, look, there's a lot written in the press about education, some schools doing online, some not. I mean, in truth, the process of moving your lessons online should be pretty straightforward. In lots of schools haven't done it, and I think they should have done it. In truth, it's reasonably straightforward. So we went into last March. We work with the Google Classroom platform, but we were already incorporating that into all of our lessons. So actually, then moving online wasn't such a big thing. I mean, the children all had all their Google accounts already. They were very familiar with it. The difficulty is not moving online. The difficulty is, well, what does that mean for teachers? And what does that mean for pupils? And what does that content look like? So for teachers, it's really tough because they sort of sit here like I am with you, staring into a screen, talking to you. And I bet this conversation would feel much more natural if we were in the same room together, because you pick up body language and energy from each other. And that's the same for teachers, which is when they're in a classroom teaching, there's an energy which is delivered. And also they can spot children having a bit of difficulty, or those that maybe they need to push on and do a bit more. When you're doing that online, it's tough. So how do you make sure the lessons are properly, to use the jargon, differentiated, making sure that every child has the relevant content? So that's quite difficult. Yeah. And, a lot of content actually is delivered in quite a hands-on way. So in maths, it's quite good for children to touch and feel stuff. It's much more difficult to do that through a PC. And I think for pupils, this idea that you can take your timetable from 9 o'clock to 4 o'clock and then just move it online, it just doesn't work because they get fatigue. I mean, can you imagine sitting online for 8 hours just staring into a screen? It'd be awful. So, you've got to modify and flex your content and modify and flex how you deliver it. And that's a kind of moving feast. And I think when we started last April, we learned a lot in the first 2 weeks about, it's just not going to work. Yeah. And I think in this particular lockdown, we've learned lessons from the previous one, which is that, I'll give you 2 real examples. One is actually, we noticed with teenagers in the last lockdown that we felt we delivered the online stuff really well, but actually we got concerned about the isolation of 15-year-olds and 16-year-olds being away from their friends. So this time around, we sort of baked in much more one-to-one reflection time. So much more the kind of pastoral side, because we saw that as a potential problem last time. And with younger children, 5-year-olds sitting in front of a screen is really hard. So, what we've done this time around is we've actually seconded a lot of our teaching assistants from across the group and said, what, during this lockdown period, we want you to spend much more of your time with our kind of 5 to 7-year-olds, which means that we can then split them into small groups. So actually it's a much more one-to-one experience as opposed to a kind of 1 to 20 experience. So we've learned lessons this time around from last time around. And I think the big thing for us as a group is, what are the benefits of the group and how can we leverage that? And that's something we're really conscious of. So, some examples that would be, how do you deliver A-level chemistry online? That's tough. But if we can get our head of chemistries together from across the group and talk about how they're doing it, surely having 10, 15, 20 people's heads coming together is much better than one. So kind of leveraging the possibilities from the group, I think, has been a really good thing for us. And then on the more sort of prosaic stuff, just recently there was a school which developed this app where for younger children, they always forget, as we all do, to kind of unmute and mute themselves. That hilarious thing where you're talking and someone says, you're on mute. Well, that happens with these children. So a school found this technology, this app, where to talk, the child just presses the space bar, and then when they finish talking, they release the space bar and they're back on mute again. So it's much more user-friendly. It's a really great app. So one school found it. All of our heads meet together as a team once a week, and we sort of share these ideas. And so now all the schools across the group are doing it. So, it goes from how do you deliver A-level chemistry right through to this kind of talking thing, So, we're always trying to learn new things from each other. Our teachers are just doing a brilliant job. And I don't underestimate how difficult it is for them. It's really, really tough. But they're brilliant and doing a great job.
The kind of a broad question, this next one. If you weren't in a global pandemic, I can imagine you won't probably be sitting behind your computer. What would a normal day look like for you? Sorry.
Yeah. So, good question. I reckon I'd probably spend 2 days a week on the road. I'm a real pest, actually. I like to go and visit schools, and whether they want me, I think I know the answer to that. But I like being in the field, and I get energized by being with people and seeing what we're doing, and it gives me ideas. And yeah, I'm not a kind of desk guy. I like being out there working with people. So ideally, I'd be on the road for 2 days, being in schools and looking at what we're doing and speaking to people. Then I do lots of boring meetings. So, you know, but I try to keep, let's say, the more formal meetings to a minimum.
Yeah.
My favorite part of the job, honestly, is being either in schools meeting people or being in the office and just wandering around, sitting next to people, chatting, how things going, picking up ideas. You can see actually people probably don't like me being in the schools or the office, but that's generally how I work. I like just to sort of spend time with people and find out how things are going.
Amazing. So not every day is the same.
No.
So thank you again for coming and speaking to me. But to finish off, always ask a fun question. And this year's question is, what would be your go-to late night snack?
Now, Anna, why do you want to know this?
It can. I think it can
questions you could ask.
No, I think it could just you can find out a bit more about a person.
So, all right, I have many weaknesses that I try to keep quiet. One is I have a massively sweet tooth, so really nice chocolate is a weak spot for me. You know, that really nice Swiss chocolate, milk chocolate, dark chocolate. I'm not fussy. So I find myself, without even knowing it, piling into chocolate, and I don't even quite know how it's got into my hand. I do a bit of that. I also enjoy a glass of wine in the evening, and I always think a glass of wine tastes a bit better with a kind of slab of cheese. So I'm going to say my go-to snack is a slab of cheese, and I'm not even that fussy about the cheese, but it just somehow makes the wine taste a bit better. So I'm going to say cheese.
I'm in total agreement with you about a nice glass of wine and quite a big bit of cheese.